A joyful evening, everyone. We are the Group 1, and we are going to tackle about the definition of pictograph and how you solve them. And we are here to discuss about what is pictograph. My co-member will discuss the description, the definition of terms, the step procedure, sample problem, the solution, interpretation, conclusion, and reference.
A pictogram is a form of writing or communication that uses pictures or symbols to represent words, phrases, or ideas. It's one of the earliest and most basic forms of written language and has been used by various cultures throughout history. Here are a brief description and history of pictograms. Description: pictographs are visual representation of object, concepts, or action using simple drawing or symbol. They are often easy to understand and can convey information to people who speak different languages. Pictograms can range from very basic symbols to more detailed and complex drawings. History: pictograms have a long history dating back thousands of years. They were used by ancient civilization for various purposes. Ancient Egyptians used hieroglyphics, a type of pictograms, writing for religious texts, inscriptions on monuments, and administrative record. Native American tribes use pictograms on cave walls, rocks, and hides to record historical events, maps, and stories. Chinese characters originally from pictograms, with many characters still retaining visual elements of their origins. The ancient Sumerians and Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, used cuneiform, which included both pictograph and wedge-shaped symbols for writing on clay tablets. Pictograms were also used by prehistoric cultures to communicate through cave painting.
Pictograph or pictogram is a type of data representation where information or amounts are represented by images or symbols. It's a type of data visualization in which each image or symbols represent a certain number of objects or units. Pictographs are often used to make data more interesting and more easier to understand, especially for young learners or in situations where a visual representation is more intuitive than numerical data. That's all. Thank you.
Now we know the description of pictograph. I'm here to present to you the steps and procedure in creating the pictograph. Before we can create a pictograph, we first need to know the 5 and simple steps on creating one. The first step is collect the data. We need to gather all the relevant information to help our problem grow and understand better. Once the data is collected, we can proceed to the next step. The second step is to create a symbol or an image. Before we can present our data, we first need to pick a symbol or image so it can better understand the problem. For example, if your problem is all about weather, forecast, or something like that, you can pick a symbol like a cloud or a raindrop. And if your problem is all about bakery or bread, you can choose any type of bread you want. For our third step, it is assign a key. Now, when you think about it, what is a key? key represent the value of an image or a symbol. For example, one image doesn't just represent one value. Instead, the image can be represented in a more value. The key should be written along the pictograph so that the reader will know the value of the image. Now, let's move to the fourth step. Now that we know the three steps, we can proceed to the fourth steps, which is draw a pictograph. With the data that we collected, the symbols we have created, and the keys that we have assigned, we can draw the pictograph. In drawing a pictograph, we need to create two columns which represents our data and our category. After that, we can finally put our symbols or image inside the pictograph, as it represents the frequency for our problem. In case that our frequency is not a whole number but a fraction, we can draw the symbols as a fraction by making it half of the whole. This is the part of pictograph. It contains the title, which explains what is the pictograph is all about, the label, which explain what type of data is being collected, and lastly, the key, which explains the value of the symbol. Once we have created the pictograph, we can proceed to our next step or final step, which is the fifth step, review the data and pictograph. Once we have created the pictograph, we need to make sure if the image are exactly represent to our data, as well as labeling of the pictograph. That's all for my part. Now, my friends here will give you some examples about pictograph.
So now that we understand the steps and procedure of pictograph, we will proceed the sample problems. Problem 1. A detective is investigating a series of crime in a neighborhood. The detective needs to keep track of deaths of crime that have occurred over the past month. So now, let's present the problem into pictograph. These two columns represent the category and data. The symbols inside represent the frequency. So here are the value of K. Each police car symbol represents 2 criminals robberies. Each gun symbol represents 3 armed robberies. And each fingerprint symbol represents 4 cases of vandalism. Now, I will give you some questions about this problem. Question 1. How many cases of criminal robbery have occurred in the past month? Answer. In the past month, there have been 8 cases of criminal robbery. Question 2. How many cases of vandalism have been reported in the neighborhood? Answer. There have been 20 cases of vandalism reported in the neighborhood.
So this is one of the sample problems of pictograph. Problem 2. A detective agency is tracking the types of evidence found at different crime scenes. So now, let's proceed to presenting the problem into pictograph. Crime scene A, each magnifying glass represents 3 pieces of physical evidence. Crime scene B, each hand represents 5 pieces of fingerprint evidence. Crime scene C, each blood drop represents 10 pieces of blood evidence. Question 1. Which crime scene has the most pieces of evidence in total? Answer. Crime scene B has the most pieces of evidence in total with 25 pieces. Question 2. How many pieces of evidence were found at crime scene C? Answer. There were 30 pieces of evidence found at crime scene C.
So as you can see in our pictograph, it has four categories. It has police car symbols, guns, and fingerprints. So police car symbols represent two criminal robberies, and for the guns, it represents three armed robberies, and for the fingerprint, it represents the four cases of vandalism. So question 1. How many cases of criminal robbery occurred in the past month? So, in the past month, there have been 8 cases of criminal robbery. You can count the number of the police car symbols in the pictograph. Each represent 2 criminal robberies to find the total number of criminal robbery cases. So, 2, 4, 6, 8. So, it has 8 cases of robbery. And for the question 2, how many cases of vandalism have been reported in a neighborhood? So, there have been 20 cases of vandalism reported in a neighborhood. You can count the number of the fingerprint symbols in the pictograph. Each represent 4 cases of vandalism to find the total of vandalism case. So, as you can see here, it has 5 fingerprints. So 4, 8, 12, 16, 20. So it has 20 cases of vandalism. So let's proceed to the other question. So as you can see here, it has a different kind of symbol again. So it has magnifying glass, fingerprint, and blood evidence. So magnifying glass symbols represent 3 pieces of physical evidence. And for fingerprint symbols represent 5 pieces of fingerprint. And for the blood drop symbols represent 10 pieces of evidence. So question 1. Which crime scene has the most piece of evidence in total? So as you can see here, the blood has the most evidence find. So it has 3 symbols here. So one of the blood symbols representing pieces of evidence. So 10, 20, 30. So the answer was the crime scene C has the most evidence in total. So let's proceed to the question 2. So how many pieces of evidence were found at the crime scene C? So we can count the number of blood evidence in the pictograph. Each represent 10 pieces of evidence to find the total number of evidence. So 10, 20, 30.
I'm Vivian Bilbar and I'm here to discuss what is conclusion and generalization. Our topic is pictograph. What is pictograph? Pictograph is a way to represent of data using image or symbols. It is also represent the frequency using data or image. So our description, pictographs are visual language that has played a significant role in a human communication throughout history. They have been used for a various purposes from recording history to convey ideas, and they continue to influence modern writing systems. So now let's proceed to definition of terms. In math, terms are components of an expression. However, we can use the word define the component of a common fraction, ratio, proportion, or sequence as well. Next is step procedures on how to create a pictograph. First step is collect the data, and the second is select a symbol of images. Step 3, assign a key. And step 4, draw a pictograph. And step 5 is review the data and pictograph. Once the pictograph is drawn, make sure that the image exactly represent data as well the labeling of the pictograph.
I'm Trisha May Parinasan. I will continue discussing the conclusion and generalization. So the last did mention my partner is a step-by-step procedure.
Next is sample and solutions. Problem number 1. A detective is investigating a series of crimes in a neighborhood. The detective needs to keep track of the types of crimes that have occurred over the past month. They presents the data using the following pictograph. Each police car symbol represents 2 criminal robberies, each gun symbol represents 3 armed robberies, each fingerprint symbol represents 4 cases of vandalism. The detective's records for the past month are as follows. Interpretation and answer. Question number 1. How many cases of criminal robbery have occurred in the past month? In the past month, there have been 8 cases of criminal robbery. You can count the number of police car symbols in the pictograph. Each represents 2 criminal robberies to find the total numbers of criminal robbery cases. Question number 2. How many cases of vandalism have been reported in the neighborhood? There have been 20 cases of vandalism reported in the neighborhood. You can count the number of fingerprint symbols in the pictograph, each representing 4 cases of vandalism, to find the total number of vandalism cases.
References refer to the source of information that gives the readers details about the source so that they have a good understanding of what kind of source it is and if the information they are getting is valid or reliable for your topic pictograph. Here are the list of your references. www.qmat.com, www.bygus.com, www.matisfan.com, www.150stat.can.gc.ca, www.flickbooks.ck12.org, www.vicdanto.com. And that's all about references.